So good morning students. Let's start our lecture for today. So in the previous lecture, we were doing prepositions. So let's continue further from where we left. So let's start. So now next pair is across and through. Now across means from one side to another side. Basically we use across when there is movement in two-dimensional open space. For example, road, ground, etc. Whereas through means from one side to another, but in sense of inside something. Basically through is used when the movement takes place in three-dimensional closed space. For example, you can say a tunnel. So keep this in mind. Through means from one side to another side, but in sense of inside something. So basically the movement is taking place in three-dimensional closed space. So for example, the train passed through the tunnel. Another sentence, the bullet went straight through him. I swam across the river. He walked across the road. Now, as you can see from the given figure, the train is passing through the tunnel. While in the second figure, a little boy is walking across the crosswalk. Now moving on, next is prepositions with forms of transport. We use by plus noun when we talk about means of transport. So for example, we travel by train. Similarly, we can also say we travel by car, or you can say we travel by bus, and so on. Now next, we do not use by when the reference is to a specific car, bicycle, train, etc. So in that case, we do not use by. For example, we travelled in Mr. Joshi's car. So here we are talking about a specific car. Hence, we will not use by over here. Instead, we have used preposition in over here. Clear? So now next, we say on foot and not by foot. So keep this in mind. For example, he goes to the office on foot. So it means he walks to the office. So now next is fixed prepositions. So certain verbs, nouns, adjectives and participles are followed by particular prepositions, that is fixed prepositions only. So let's discuss some of them. So first one is agree. So with agree, generally two prepositions are used. One is with and the other one is to. So agree with is basically used with a person. So you agree with a person, but you agree to a thing or a proposal, or you agree to do something. Fine? So is it clear? Now let us take an example. I could not agree with him. He did not agree to my proposal. Now next is angry. So you are angry with a person and you are angry at something. For example, the father was very angry with his son for not going to school. Another sentence, I am very angry at his misconduct. Now moving on, next is differ. So differ with is used to imply disagreement, as in differing with a point of view. And differ from is used to imply unlike, as in one thing differing from the other in nature or maybe in habit and so on. For example, I differ with you on the question of opening a new section. Next example, slate differs from other rocks in many ways. So in the first one, I differ with you on the question of opening a new section. So basically here you are disagreeing. Cool? So now next is deal. So basically you deal in a business, but you deal with somebody. It is also used in case of handling or addressing a particular situation or problem. For example, he deals in computer software. Another example, he knows how to deal with his customers. Clear? Now, moving on. Next is familiar. It is generally used with two prepositions. One is to and the other one is with. So, familiar to means easy to recognize because of being seen before, whereas familiar with means well informed about something or knowing thoroughly. So, for example, his face is familiar to me. I am quite familiar with this place. Now, moving on, next is made. Now, made from is used when the basic material changes. That is, it is kind of irreversible, just like a chemical change. Whereas, made of is used when the basic material does not change in the process of making the object. That is, it is kind of reversible. It is basically a physical change. So, is it clear? Made from when the basic material changes and made of when the basic material does not change in the process of making the object. So, for example, she wore a beautiful necklace made of silver. Paper is made from wood. Wine is made from grapes, and so on. Now, next is reconcile. So, reconcile to means to cause a person to accept something difficult or disagreeable, whereas reconcile with means to restore harmonious or friendly relations with another person. Let us understand this with the help of an example. He has reconciled himself to his lost. The two brothers were reconciled with each other. Now, next is trust. Trust in means to have a strong belief in someone, whereas trust with means to entrust something to someone. For example, trust in God and do the right thing. Another example, I cannot trust my child with money. Now, moving on, next is vexed. Vexed means irritated or annoyed. So, you are vexed at something, but you are vexed with someone. Vexed with someone means that you are upset with them for some reason. For example, do not be vexed with me. Another example, I am vexed at his silence. Now, moving on, the following verbs take the preposition from after them. So, again, this is important, keep this in mind. So, abstain from, debar from, derive from, deviate from, emerge from, escape from, prevent from, prohibit from, protect from, recover from, refrain from, and so on. For example, because of my health, I am going to abstain from the consumption of alcoholic beverages. So, abstain from here means to stop yourself from doing something, basically to choose not to do something. Another example, we must refrain from spitting in public places. Now, next, the following take the preposition with after them. So, acquaintance with, alliance with, associate with, bear with, bargain with, clash with, coincide with, comply with. intimacy with, quarrel with, replete with, sympathize with, and so on. Let us understand this with the help of an example. I had a terrible quarrel with my brother. The country's history is replete with stories of people who became successful by working hard. Now moving on, next is the following take preposition for after them. For example, affection, ambition, atone, compassion, craving, canvas, compensation, liking, hope, pine, passion, and so on. So for example, he promised to atone for his crime. She skipped meals to satisfy her cravings for chocolate. Now next is the following take the preposition of after them: abhorrence, assurance, beware, boast, composed, conscious, convicted, disapprove, dispose, devoid, deprived, diffident, envious, fond, guilty, proud, suspicious, void, and worthy, and so on. Let us understand this with the help of an example. Beware of pickpockets in the train. He was found guilty of murder. Now, moving on, the following take the preposition to after them. For example, addicted to, adjacent to, affectionate to, agreeable to, antidote to, conform to, comparable to, contrary to, devoted to, detrimental to, harmful to, immune to, indebted to, indifferent to, indigenous to, loyal to, prior to, prefer to, prone to, and so on. So let us understand this with the help of an example. He became addicted to pain medication. People have become indifferent to the suffering of others. So let's solve a few questions. As usual, I will give you some time to solve them and then we will discuss. So here's the question. Let's begin. So is it done? Let's discuss. A feather fell from the peacock's tail while it danced gracefully in the garden. So the grammatical error lies in option A. Fell from is incorrect. The correct phrase would be fell off the peacock's tail. Basically, to denote separation, we use the preposition of. So it is used to denote separation. For example, the fruit fell off the branch on the girl's head. Whereas, to denote source, we use the preposition from. For example, the river flows from the hills to the plains. Hence, the correct sentence should be a feather fell off the peacock's tail while it danced gracefully in the garden. Now next. So let's tally. In the past, the process of selecting the right candidates has reflected rivalries between many countries. So the error lies in option C. The preposition between is used for two persons or things, whereas in the given sentence, many countries are mentioned. Hence, the use of between is incorrect over here. Therefore, we will replace between with among. Among is used in speaking of more than two persons or things. Hence, the correct sentence would be, in the past, the process of selecting the right candidates has reflected rivalries among many countries. Now, moving on, solve. So, is it done? Let's check the answer. The rural masses have the habit about saving and spending only when needed. So, the grammatical error lies in option B. The correct word in this context would be habit of saving. Instead of habit about saving, it will be habit of saving. That will be correct. We generally use about when we want to talk or change something about a person or thing. So, here about will not be used. Instead of will be used. With habit, we use preposition of. So, if you are in the habit of doing something, you do it regularly or often. Hence, we will replace about with of. Thus, the correct sentence would be, the rural masses have the habit of saving and spending only when needed. So, that's it for today. We will continue further in the next lecture. Thank you.